you were at Palantir 04 to 09. We were also at PayPal, and they categorized you as being part of the PayPal mafia. Second,
I'm 15 years younger than Peter. I'm 12
Right.
years younger than Elon. I was a junior kid there. I don't get any credit for PayPal. Yeah.
But you were still there. You were
I was
still
there
seeing
learning. I was learning from these guys.
And were you in meetings? Were you watching them? Were you there?
Of
And what was that like? What was Elon like in meetings? What was Peter like in meetings? What was that like? Give us some of the insight.
I usually wasn't in meetings with Elon, to be honest. But these guys were just very opinionated, very interested, very ambitious, very fast. No tolerance for things that are broken. You fix it right away. You work through the problems. You get everything done today. You don't talk about what you're going to do next week. You just move. People would be there late at night fixing problems. Just passionate about their work.
What was the demo of the age? What would you say the averages? Would you say 25?
These are a bunch of guys in their 20s mostly.
In their 20s.
In their 20s.
Where you can be demanding of getting them to. Now at the same time, was Elon and Peter also there driving, working with them?
Yeah, in different contexts, right? Peter's more of the strategist, the philosopher, the thinker. He's not the technical guy himself. I think Elon is more of the operator. He's more there in the room. I was in Palo Alto a couple weeks ago, right? And I was meeting a friend, and Elon was in the back doing engineering reviews at XAI. He's just there working. He's kind of more of the workhorse, just push through, solve the details of the technical problems.
Was the level of intent, like who was the most intense guy at Apple? The most intense?
I think Elon's always been one of the very most intense people I've ever seen in terms of working, but there's other engineers who are just there all the time pushing hard, right? I think when you're in operation mode, guys like Max Lipsch and others were just, as far as I could tell, just always working.
Who were some of the guys that you worked with that were maybe junior guys like you that came out and became big stars as well?
Yeah, so a lot of the guys who were there were 16 different companies that were started after PayPal that quickly became billion-dollar companies, right? So, and a lot of these guys were older than me, but it was the guys, Chad and Steve who built YouTube. It was Reid Hoffman who built LinkedIn. It was obviously Elon did Tesla and SpaceX. There's guys who built Ironport. There's just so many things that came out of there.
Got it. And so from there, how did the opportunity to be a co-founder of Palantir come up?
Well, I was working with Peter at his hedge fund,
okay.
And the hedge fund was a little bit disorganized, and I started bringing in my smartest friends to help, and there weren't really other managers there, so I'd help start building things. And a bunch of my smartest friends I brought in one summer to help us, they weren't interested in finance. They thought it was boring. And Peter and I had been talking a lot about, at PayPal, we had to stop the Chinese and Russian mafia from stealing all of our money. And so we got to know the guys who were helping us arrest the bad guys. There was Secret Service and the FBI. And right after this happened, it was 9/11. And so these guys were spending billions of dollars on stuff that we thought didn't make any sense. And they kept asking us for advice. They were confused about how to do things.
Who?
It was, President Bush created what was called the Department of Homeland Security at the time. I shouldn't be too mean about it, but how it works in government is that when you create a new department, people can't really fire people in government easily. So sometimes they'll have a lot of people they wanted to fire, and then instead they just push them into the new department. So it was a bit of a mess.
Got it. Push them into new departments, and you're fired.
So therefore, the whole department didn't really know very well what it was doing at first, was my impression. And they were spending money on just nonsense stuff. And it became really obvious to us that Silicon Valley, Google, PayPal, all these things that were going on out there were just way ahead technically of where the government was at that point. And this was a problem because the government was spending $38 billion a year gathering data, looking at the data, failing to stop the terrorists, but also abusing our civil liberties. So it was a mess. So we said, you know what? There's actually a really important problem here to solve. A, I'd like to stop the bad guys from attacking us again and go get them instead. B, I don't want everyone in the government seeing all of my data without any controls. That's crazy.
So that's when you said, why don't we go do it? You guys said, let's go do it ourselves.
And I started having my friends I brought that summer to help build a prototype, and which sounds even crazier than finance, but at least it was interesting. They enjoyed helping me build it. And my roommate, who I'm actually seeing later, he moved down here to Miami. He and I controlled the team, and Stephen Cohen, my co-founder, and we started building it out.
And CIA was apparently one of the first investors in the company.
They eventually gave us money. I think it was a second or third round, but it was only $2 million, and we actually bought them back. The reason we needed them is that Peter, basically no one would give us money. First of all, Alex Karp and I went all over Sand Hill Road. Like, what, you guys have all this talent, because they can measure talent even back then. Like, why aren't you doing social media? Why aren't you doing something new and exciting? Working with the government's crazy. What's wrong with you guys? It's not possible.
So he didn't think it was a good idea to work
No,
with the government.
this is Alex and I talking to the investors.
Okay.
So all the investors were basically
telling you guys.
They're telling us, you guys are crazy.
Right.
No one does this. Why are you doing this?
Right.
It's not possible. It doesn't make any sense.
These are some big names, credible names.
These are the big names. These are we got turned down by everyone. We got turned down by Excel, by Sequoia. The guy at Kleiner Perkins at the time, and they're a great firm. I admire them very much. But the guy at the time who's no longer there, he started laughing at us on the phone because Alex didn't have a technical degree. He's like, you guys don't even know what you're doing. And it's a doctorate, but it's not even a relevant doctorate. Like they're laughing us out of the room, basically.
And what is Alex's mindset like when he's walking out of the room? What's he telling you?
Oh,
because Alex he's a very unique type of guy himself.
We were not happy with these people. Peter Thiel told me it was probably really good for me because it gave me like an even bigger chip on my shoulder to make sure we succeeded after being like mocked and turned down by like 30 of these guys. And Peter couldn't just only fund it himself. He needed other people to fund these things. So when we got In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA's venture capital arm at the time, to give us a little bit of money, and Peter gave us even more, that was really critical.
And then how long later did you guys pay the $2 million back?
I think we bought it for a much higher amount. We had some option. I forget. It must have been 5 or 6 years later.
Okay, so they still made some money on it.
Oh, they made plenty of money on it. More importantly, we saved the government billions of dollars versus what they were doing. I mean, you literally had things going on. The DHS guys, I remember there was some Unisys thing where it was like $3 billion to integrate all the data. And we came and we showed them we could have done the same thing for them out of the box in a month. Like, don't waste billions of dollars. So it turns out competence saves the government lots of money and protects civil liberties. People don't realize it's both of those things.
What is the desire to constantly use names that are from, I believe, Lord of the Rings, right? What does that come from?
Peter gets credit for naming.
Peter gets credit.
But I'm a fan of it. I think, listen, and we wrote about this at the time. So at the time when we're creating this, we say this is a dangerous thing to create, but we believe it's a worthy thing to create. And it took a lot of courage. Like, there's a lot of different things we could have worked on. We could have made a lot of money doing a lot of other things. But it was really important to both help. We have to eliminate probably up to 10,000 terrorists that might not have got eliminated. We worked with all sorts of amazing groups in the government alongside them with the technology and with the ability, and we help protect civil liberties and make sure the government watchers are being watched. Now, of course, if you create this technology, it's if it gets into the wrong hands and they turn off the audit trails, who knows what bad could be done with it. So there's good and bad here.
Yeah. So and we'll get in. I want to get into that as well, but. Going back to the meeting with investors and them saying, you know what, you guys don't know what you're doing. You don't even have the real degree. Alex said in one of the interviews, I think he may have said it to you. He said, I wish we would have told them to F off and just left.
We were so polite. We were so polite. They would have probably respected us more if we had just like.
Were you naturally polite or were you intentionally becoming polite because you needed the money?
I thought you were supposed to do. We needed the money, man. I didn't know what you were supposed to do.
Got it. So, but it wasn't naturally because you're a disagreeable personality.
No, well,
right?
yeah. At the same time, I think both of us are not the kind of people. We're probably a little more arrogant now that we've done
more arrogant now.
We didn't, we didn't know that we didn't know for sure we knew what we were doing. We felt we were doing something smart, but it was our first time.
He said, I think it was, I wish we were more arrogant in certain areas and less arrogant in certain areas.
That's well said. It was interesting when you're creating our company, we kind of reinvented a lot of things from scratch, and in some cases it was probably, frankly, genius. In other cases, we could have just hired someone who knew what they were doing. And it's like when you're building a company, I talk about having adults in the room. There's certain types of adults you don't want to bring into a startup because you don't want people running a machine in the standard way. You want to be creative. But there's certain parts that once you get there, you probably do want the adults to show you how it's done. So there's some things we maybe could have learned from others.
When we set out to create a shoe that blends comfort, function, and luxury, we had the choice to make it fast. We had the choice to make it cheap. We chose neither. Instead, we chose Tuscany, Italy. We chose true Italian craftsmanship, each pair touched by 50 skilled hands. We chose patience, spending 2 years perfecting every detail, and we chose the finest quality at every step. Introducing the Future Looks Bright collection. Not rushed, not disposable, not ordinary. Rather, intentional, luxurious, timeless. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.